Alright, so my friends, welcome. Complete set review. Dominaria United. Woo! Phyrexians are back, and we're doing black right now. We did white, we did blue. You missed those, are on YouTube. Go check those out, and go follow me on YouTube, all right? We got Bronze Mythic coming up. We got 10 new brews coming up. Bam, right there. It's going to be on Tuesday of next week. We also got freaking Poker Night. That's tomorrow. We got Pile Driver for Fantasy Football. Signups end on Sunday. Lots of crap going on in Discord. Check it all out. I'm pumped. You should be too. Also have our pre-release as well. That's going to be on Saturday, September 3rd. Free to play. All the things are always free to play or free to do in my Discord with prizes, which is great. Let's go. It's time to do black. We have awards to give out. We have cards to look over. We're going over every single card. It's going to be constructed and limited. Starting out with aggressive Sabotage. Then we had a sorcery. Mind Rot you. Kicker 3. Blightning you. Sorry, kicker 1 red. Blightning you. So Mind Rot. Add a red to Lava Spike. Not quite Blightning, exactly. And this card's pretty mopey. The reason why this gets mopey is that Blightning was at least efficient. This card is not particularly efficient. And if you're playing a game unlimited, because it's obviously a limited card, you're usually going to be attacking on one angle or another. Either you're trying to race them, so the damage matters, or you're trying to outcard them, so the Mind Rot matters. But it's kind of weird for a deck to want to do both, which makes this card kind of a miss. So this is definitely a sideboardable card in sealed, and like maybe some decks want it in drafts. But for the most part, this card's a miss. This card's a miss. Balduvian Atrocity. 3 mana for a 2/3 menace. It has kicker 1 red. When it ETBs, if it was kicked, return a creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste and then sack it at the end of turn. This card's sweet, honestly. So 2/3 menace for 3 is fine in limited on rate. Not great, but fine. And if you can get some value off this creature, say your creature ETBs to do something, that's pretty good. It's a free extra, free extra damage, which is great. So this card will definitely vary depending on the quality of cards you're bringing back. But if it's a card like Phyrexian Rager, which we'll see in a little bit, and you're drawing a card off it, you're dealing some damage, it's pretty cool. So this card is sweet. I think this card is going to overperform in limited. I think this card is a sneaky card. It's going to be sweet. A little deck dependent, but a cool card with a decent floor. And that's what you want limited. Good, high upside, decent floor. Like it a lot. Battle Rage Blessing is next. 2 mana for an instant. Creature gains Death Touch and struggle to end of turn. I don't like this card. I don't like 2 mana tricks unless they're really, really good. And this card's not really, really good. If you're desperate for a trick, sure. But not a fan of this card, really. Just not you're not getting enough for 2 mana here. Battlefly Swarm. Simple. 1 mana, 1/1 flyer. 1 black for Death Touch. Card's fine. Honestly, it attacks early on. It can defend later. It's a fine card. Just a fine limited card. I think you want to be, I guess you need to be either aggressive or defensive with this card, right? I wouldn't love this card if I'm a defensive deck and I have a lot of expensive cards. Therefore, it's hard to leave the black mana up. But all in all, I think this card's pretty reasonable. Death Touch is a very, very good ability in limited. It can chip some damage points in, which is kind of cool. It's an okay limited card for sure. Blight Pile. So once again, there's a defender theme across all the colors and cards that care about the number of defenders you have. And this is one of the best ones. 2 mana for a 3/3 defender. So well-sized, honestly. This thing turns off a lot of 2-drops and holds the fort. Tap 3. Tap this. Each opponent loses X life or X is the number of creatures you control with defenders. So say you have three walls in play. Take 3. Take 3. Take 3. This is your win condition later in the game, while offering you a good rate early on for early defense. If you're the defender deck, this card's great. If you're not, and you're just like desperate for a blocker early, this card's okay. We've seen some cards like this in the past. They're usually blue creatures that can't attack unless you do something. They're okay blockers for sure. So it's an okay blocker. You probably want to be the defender deck to actually want this card limited, but kind of a cool card. Moving on to Bone Splinters, a reprint with some pretty wild art. Sack creature, kill a creature. This card is going to be probably like almost like a black-white hybrid card in limited because there are so many like token makers and stuff in limited. If you're doing that, that's pretty sweet. Unfortunately, the recent cards we've seen like this have offered you the ability to pay extra mana rather than attack a creature. This lacks that, and that makes it a much worse limited card, but it's still a playable limited card for sure. And it's very deck dependent. Don't just put this card in your draft deck unless you have a good reason to. But if you have fodder creatures to sacrifice, it's definitely a playable card in limited. In constructed, it's not really good enough. Not really good enough. Braids Arisen Nightmare. Sleeper card in black, and this is not just I love braids. I do love the original braids unconditionally. Me and braids go way back. But this card is sneakily pretty good. Black, black, 1 for a 3/3. It's a legendary creature. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player loses 2, and you draw a card. So what you want to do with this card is, you want to sacrifice an odd card type, be it an enchantment or an artifact, mostly. So you have a blood token in play, sack the blood token. They're probably not going to have an artifact in play. So now we're just trading a blood token to draw a card and deal 2 damage. That's awesome. And the thing is, it works on your end step. If it worked on your upkeep and your opponent had time to kill it before you could use it, then it would not be good. It would suck. But because you can use this thing on turn 3 immediately before they have a chance to react, if you get your card back immediately, that's awesome. So I like this card a lot. This card's super, super cool. And again, you need to build around it. You're going to want to have, blood tokens, treasure tokens, maybe food tokens, whatever it is. Enchantments, maybe, like a card like Oath of Kaya or something like that. You can go crazy with like Treacherous Blessing or Demonic Pact. That'll be a fun build around for Freshly Brewed at some point, a show that I do. But honestly, just as a card played straight up with, bloody treasury stuff, maybe the Anvil, Onicult Anvil. This card's got a lot of potential at a good rate, and it works immediately. That's the important part. Again, if it was on your upkeep, this card's unplayable. But when it's at your end of turn, you can use it immediately. That's super sweet. So I like this card a lot. I think this card's sneakily very, very good. And card's just great. Card's super cool. And limited, the card's great. And limited, this card is just a 3/3 for 3, which is fine, with upside, which is also pretty sweet too. And then also, if you're just like sacrificing 1/1s and like making them decide between sacrificing a better creature or drawing a card, that's just fine too. That's just fine too. So card sweet, like it a lot. That's my sleeper. Braids, Arisen Nightmare. Love braids. Love braids. Braids Frightful Return is next. And again, the sagas that have the read ahead ability. It's a new ability. Allows you to start your saga at any chapter you want. So you can start at 1, 2, or 3 and then go from there. Chapter 1, cost 3. Chapter 1 is you may sacrifice a creature. If you do, each opponent discards a card. So not great, but okay. Chapter 2 is return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And then chapter 3 is target opponent may sacrifice a non-land, non-token permanent. If they do, and if they don't, they lose. Damn it. I missed the mute button. God, you suck. You're the worst. You're the worst content creator ever. Sorry. I apologize. I talked really loud, and I worked really hard to have my mute button there, and I screwed it up. I'm sorry. Anyway, chapter 3. Target opponent may sacrifice a non-land, non-token permanent. If they don't, they lose 2 life, and you draw a card. So, not a great chapter 3, because they have a huge amount of options. They can sacrifice or not sacrifice. If you just draw a card off this, I guess if you like draw the card off this and get to raise dead something, it's a 2 for 1. But it's not like a super impressive 2 for 1. For constructive, this card doesn't do enough. We're not seeing enough value off this card to really get you all the way there. I think in limited, this card's reasonable. You can kind of just like sack your creature, make him discard, get it back, and then get this extra third ability. A little bit of value. I think that you really want to play this card for full value in limited, especially. But yeah, kind of an okay limited value card. Constructed, not really. Choking Misma. This might be the best infest ever printed. Black, 1. All creatures get -2, -2. So we've seen this card 1,000 times. However, you can kicker it for a green and put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, which is obviously huge. So you can possibly save one of your own creatures as well as just pump your creatures in general. Great card in limited. If all you do is kill one creature with this and then buff your creature, that's great. And you can do so much more. So great limited card. You want to build your deck around it a little bit, but that being said, in constructive, this card could definitely play also because Infest is just a playable card in constructive regardless. And if you ever get value off it, that's awesome as well. But super cool card. Like it a lot. It's cool. It's Infest. What more do you want? The Cruelty of Gix. 5 mana for a rare saga. Again, also has the read ahead ability. Chapter 1. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a creature or planeswalker card from it. That player discards that card. So, I mean, not great. 5 mana to Sword of Thought's easy is not awesome. Chapter 2. Grim Tutor. search library for a card, put it in your hand, shuffle, lose 3 life. 3 life is a lot. And it's not a choice. You must do this. So if you're low on life after chapter 1 and you got to also do this, that's kind of a little iffy as well. Chapter 3, put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So it's any creature. So it's got vibes of the Eldest Reborn, although it does not affect the board like the Eldest Reborn does. Both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 don't affect the board at all, which scares me a lot. For a 5-mana play constructed, if you're playing this, not affecting the board, and then hoping to go for another turn to not affect the board, and you lose life also, that's a pretty huge ask for a very, very slow 5-mana Zombify. Yes, you can silver stuff, sure, but all in all, I think this card's too slow to do much. And it's not really like cranking up the power level like a card like Elspeth Conquers Death or a card like Eldest Reborn. So I think this card's a miss. I'm not really about it. In Limited, it's fine. It's a good, decent value card. But all in all, don't think it's really worth it. Up next is Cult Conscript. This is your 241st edition of the black creature. That's a 2/1 for 1 that can come back if you jump through a hoop. So for a 2/1 skeleton warrior. Warrior is important because there are warrior synergies. Right? Warrior soldier. Oh, that's I'm sorry, no, the White Lord is soldiers, not warriors. Never mind. Cult Conscript ETB's tapped, sure. And then you can pay 2 mana and return it from your graveyard to the battlefield only if a non-skeleton creature died for you this turn. That's a pretty... it can block, which is true. So it can block. It does come in tapped, though. But having to have a non-this creature die is a kind of a pretty big ask. You know, what made Bloodsoaked Champion so good was you just play Bloodsoaked Champion on 1, and then you attack with it, and they block and trade. And that one had Raid 2 mana. If you attack this turn, it comes back. And it also came back to play, not to... I'm sorry, it came back to play also. I apologize. So like that thing triggered itself. This thing does not trigger itself. So it's fine. I think this card's okay, but it's worse than prior options. And there's going to need to be a deck for this card. It's just a okay 1-drop. It's not great. In Limited, super solid card. Just like a 2/1 for 1 is fine. Comes back over the course of a game, which is cool. So cool limited card for sure. But in Constructed, I usually love cards like this, but I think it's just not quite there. Cut Down. Best in Show. This card is great. Like, great. 1 mana instant. Destroy target creature with total power and toughness 5 or less. That's a lot. All right, so... there is a laundry list of creatures this thing kills. And does so better than Fatal Push in some ways, worse than others. Obviously, in formats where it competes with Fatal Push, there's some tension. You know, this can kill some things and then can't kill others. This can kill like a Goblin Rabble Master or a Legion War Boss, something like that. Whereas Fatal Push has trouble doing that and so on and so forth. So in Modern or later, where you have Fatal Push plus fetch lands, this card doesn't really make it, I don't think. But in Pioneer, Historic, Standard, this is a great 1 mana removal spell. This can kill most early creatures. Again, total 5 is pretty good. It can kill 2 3s, 3 2s, kill 2 2s, anything smaller, kills mana creatures, kills a lot of things. Which is great. It's hard to imagine wanting more from your 1 mana removal spell with no drawback. So, super, super solid card. Like this card a lot. Again, probably not good enough for Modern, but the bar in Modern is Fatal Push, Prismatic Ending, Lightning Bolt. You know, that's a pretty high bar, all things considered. So, super solid card. Gotta see a lot of play. I'm a big fan. Cut Down, and then Limited. In Limited, it's a little bit worse because you're not going to kill the bigger creatures. But it's still a very solid card. It's very, very cheap, and it's a good early play, good tempo play, good solid card. Like it a lot. Cut Down. I'm about it. Best in Show. There you go. Up next is Defiler of Flesh. This is the black entry into the Phyrexian mana cycle. We have 4 mana for a 4/4 menace. So this one at least has a decent rate, right? The white and blue ones cost 5, which is kind of iffy. But so 4 mana for a 4/4 menace. Same thing as the other ones where you can pay 2 life rather than 1 black mana in the cost of your black permanent spells. And then whenever you cast a black permanent spell, a creature you control gets +1/+1 to menace on its turn. So it is one of the worst triggers because a creature getting +1/+1 to menace on its turn is not that good. But it has one of the best bodies as a 4/4 menace for 4. The problem is that's not really good enough, and I don't really see what you're doing with this Phyrexian mana ability, like, to really make yourself want to play this. So, like, if you're playing it in an aggro deck, you play this on turn 4, your hand is probably already mostly empty. What are you getting a discount on? You know, so all in all, as far as constructed goes, I think these defiler cards just aren't that good. In limited, slam dunk, a 4/4 menace for 4 is already awesome. Any extra value you get is great. So, yeah, I mean, all of the defilers seem busted and limited, but in constructed, they fall short to me. They don't do enough when you first play them, and they've been really, really careful with the Phyrexian mana stuff because the mechanic's so broken. So, I get it. Drag to the bottom. This card's cool. Black 2 for a sorcery. Domain. Each creature gets -X on the turn, where X is 1 plus the number of basic land types among lands you control. I think this was a card invasion or plane shift, right? I don't know what it's called exactly, but similar effect. This is sort of like your mutilate effect, but instead of wanting swamps, it wants you to have multiple land types. So with a single black triome in play, this is a Languish, -4/-4, and Languish is a standard playable card for sure. This can get better or worse for sure. There's a lot of good domain payoffs in this set. There's also a number of good triomes and stuff like that as well. Card's sweet. I think this card could definitely see play. I think if you're playing some sort of domain deck, that's going to want you to, spend mana and time putting lands in play for all your types. Having a powerful super like this is really, really good. Double black hurts a little bit for sure as far as being a 5-color deck, but this card's quite good. If it was a domain deck, this is probably the centerpiece of it. Card's super, super solid. And then in limited, it's just a Wrath. It works in limited. You can tailor it a little bit. I don't love Rats in limited, but since it's pretty good. Probably adds best if you're playing green also, because you have big fatties that can survive it. But again, it's okay in limited. But yeah, in constructed, definitely this card's great. I like it a lot. And it's sweet. Card's awesome. Moving on to Eerie Soul Tender. Good comment here. The mana for a 3/1, which is fine. When it ETBs mill 3, it's a little bit of graveyard shenanigans. Then you can pay 4, and you can exile from your graveyard to raise dead. So similar to the Maestros Initiate from New Capetta, where it's this 3/1 for 3 that you like actively want to trade off for value later, which works out well. There's definitely the issue of you don't want to have too many mana sinks. Maestros Initiate was a card that I was super high on. Ended up being a little worse than I thought because there's just so much to do with your mana all the time. But still a fine card, still trades off well. It's a cleric, mill some cards, cool for graveyard decks. Just a cool draft common, which is kind of nice. A little extra value. Cool card. It will depend on how fast or slow the format is to know how good this card will be, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty good draft common. Evolve Sleeper. Is there an award for best cube card? Can I give that one out? Because this card's so freaking cool. This is basically your Figure of Destiny for black. So Evolve Sleeper is a 1 mana 1/1 human. You pay a black, and it becomes a 2/2. Cleric. You pay a black and 1. If it's a cleric, it becomes a Phyrexian human cleric, and becomes a 3/3 with Death Touch as a counter on it. I'm not sure why it's a counter, but whatever, sure. Then, if it's a 3/3, you can pay 3 mana and evolve it into a Phyrexian. Get rid of all the other types. I'm sorry, no. It doesn't add more types. I'm sorry. I'm trying to talk and read. If it is a Phyrexian, you just put the counter on it, and you draw a card and lose a life. So now it's a 3/3. No, I'm sorry. Now it's a 4/4, and you draw a card, lost a life. Very important to note that you can keep doing this. This is not Figure of Destiny where it's like Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. You can keep activating that third ability over and over and over again, which is very, very powerful. So now it can keep growing. You can keep drawing cards if you're in a board stall. This card's great. This card's super, super good. If there's some sort of black aggro deck, this card is at the center of it for sure. This card could have easily been the sleeper card. Or maybe even best in show in black. I think this card is sweet. The problem is this card has to have a home. What deck wants this card? That I don't really have an answer for. This card will play pretty well in Pioneer or Historic if you're able to go like turn 1 this, turn 2 Thoughtseize, evolve it, which is kind of cool. But card's super cool. I love it a lot. Definitely go to my cube. And then again, the ability to keep pumping mana into it later to draw cards and grow it is awesome. So great 1-drop, a lot of value. Card's great, love it. In limited, it's just phenomenal. It's a phenomenal limited card, obviously. In the limited, the multi pumps is going to matter a lot. Card's great. Up next is Extinguish the Light. This is a really good limited kill spell. You know, lately I feel like they've been trying to make the black premier removal spell in limited not as good, so it's not like a slam dunk first pick, but this one's really, really good. We've seen a lot of sorcery speed format of killer creatures. This one's an instant, and if you kill a small creature, you gain some life. This card's great. This card's great. Super, super solid, super solid instant removal spell for limited. And F's in chat. Jaya did not want to die, but all the things to die for. Dying for Dominaria just felt right. You believe that? You're a freaking planeswalker, you've been around for 1,000 years, and you die in a goddamn common? Unbelievable. Not cool. Granny got smoked. So, first makeable limited removal spell for sure. Constructed unplayable. You get the idea. Up next is Gibbering Barricade. What a name. 3 mana for a 2/4 defender. So pretty good stats for a wall, honestly. And you can pay 2 mana, stack creature, gain a life, draw a card. Again, if you're playing the defender deck, this card seems pretty good. It's a good size blocker. It blocks things pretty well. A little value later on for like sacrificing creatures. This card is going to play well in the black-white decks where there are the soldier token makers. So you have fodder to sacrifice. This card is definitely no, oh god, what's it called? Skullport Merchant or whatever. But still a solid common if you're playing the wall deck or a token deck. Fine common. Cool art. Very minimalist, but I like it. Knight of Dusk's Shadow, the mirror to the white one. 2 mana for a 2/2 menace that has the shade ability. It can pump. Opponents can't gain life. This is like a possible like sideboard card and constructed for life gain decks, obviously. But the Radier is great. 2 mana 2/2. Menace is worse than First Strike, I think, but the pump ability is there as well. A great limited card. Probably not really there constructed, unless you like have a desperate need to turn off life gain. But great limited card and fringy constructed card. Uh-oh. It's a trap. Don't throw tomatoes at me. All right. Liliana of the Veil is my trap card for black for Dominaria United. Let's talk. All right, let's talk. Liliana of the Veil is a good Magic card. It's not a great Magic card because of the context of what Magic is now. Not in 2010, not in 2015, not in 2005. Right here, right now. Magic in 2022, players don't run out of resources ever. All right? That's how Magic is designed these days. It's all about getting on the board and never running out of resources. So a card like Liliana, which the goal is to kind of run both players out of resources, just isn't that good. It sees no play in Modern anymore. And I think this card, don't get me wrong, Liliana will see play. In Pioneer, in Standard, or whatever, for sure. But this is not like a slam four in every black deck. This is, my awesome Planeswalker, yada, yada, yada. This is much more of a synergy. I'm playing a graveyard deck. I want to discard my Parahelion or whatever it is kind of card. It's not just a good card on rate. For those who don't remember, when Lily was in Standard, it didn't see that much play. It's not really that amazing of a card unless you're playing a format where you have the ability to put both players down to 0 resources like Jund does or used to do in Modern, where you have Thoughtseize and removal spells and you have creature lands. So when both players are empty-handed, you can take advantage of it. Once that kind of criteria exists, the card doesn't do that well, just like by itself on rate. It's also specifically good against decks that only play one threat, which is honestly what Legacy decks and some Modern decks are like, which is why that card's so good in Legacy, or was so good in Legacy, because they play their one Delver of Secrets, you edict them. They play their one Tarmogoyf, you edict them. But if they're going wide anyway, if they have tokens anyway, Liliana's not very good in that respect. So, all in all, I think Liliana will see play. Don't get me wrong here. The point of the Trap card award is to say, hey, y'all need to slow your roll a little bit, all right? Liliana is not a bad card, but it's not a particularly great card either. I think Liliana is more of a synergy piece than anything else. You're not playing Liliana on rate, period. All right? If you're playing a deck that wants to have a good answer to Graveyard Trespasser, sure, does a great job at that. If you want to discard Parahelion or something else, sure, has a good job at that. But your opponent's just like curving out 1, 2, 3, and you play Liliana, it's terrible. If your opponent's just like drawing fistful of cards off whatever insane resource engine that their deck has, because that's how Magic is these days. Liliana's card disadvantage. You play it, both players discard, you're down a card. You know, so I think Liliana is, again, going to be okay, but temper your expectations, folks. Liliana's not a powerhouse. It's only good. It's only good, not great. In Limited, it's also only okay. I mean, obviously, the Edict effect is worth a card, sort of, but both players discarding is the kind of ability we need to build around, and it's kind of hard to bet in Limited, too. So, Liliana's my trap card. You may unsub, unfollow. Make sure you unfollow me on everything. Unfollow me on YouTube. Unfollow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, ChristianMingle.com. Unfollow me on all those now. I'll see you later. It was nice knowing you. Bye. All right. Thanks for that. All right. There you go. My trap card. Report the video. Report it for slander. All right. We'll see. Just everyone check back with me. Check back with me in 3 months, and we'll see. All right? Let's go. Moving on. Monstrous War Leech. We have 4 mana for a star. Kicker, 1 blue. As it ETBs, if it was kick mill 4 cards, its power and toughness are equal to the highest mana value among cards in your graveyard. This card's actually pretty solid and limited, because each color has a common that has affinity for a certain card type, and they all cost like 6, 7, and 8. So this could easily be an 8/8, no problem, and has extra value as well. So it's a very, very solid draft card. You're going to want to have some more self-mill, obviously try and guarantee this card actually works. But I think that this is a reasonable draft card for sure, if you are a self-milly deck and have the tools to make it work. Cool. Up next is Phyrexian Ranger, friggin' gangster.
Our hero returns.
I was there, Gandalf. I was there 3,000 years ago when Phyrexian Ranger was printed, and not only printed, was a standard staple. Machine Head, anyone? Huh? Where my boomers at? Not as good anymore, but still a good draft card. A 2/2 at ETBs for draw a card for 3 is very solid. Losing a life sucks, but this card's a super solid draft card for sure. It is no longer playable in constructive, that's for sure, but it's definitely a solid draft card, and you should draft it accordingly because it's a pretty good draft card. I'll just keep saying draft card over and over again. Phyrexian Vivisector. 2 mana for a 2/2, which is fine. Whenever a creature dies, scry 1. It's a bear. This is a solid limited bear. Nothing more. Just solid bear. Has a little extra ability. Scrying 1's pretty good. Good 2-drop. Phyrexian Warhorse. 2 mana for a 3/3. Not very good. When it pay 1 kicker is 1 white. When ETBs make a soldier token, pay 1, sack creature, +2/+1. It's okay. I don't love it, this card. The rate here is not great. You know, you're playing it for 4 mana as only a 3/3. It doesn't block very well. If it didn't have the mana cost, or it was like a 3/4, I think this card needs something else to be a decent common. Without it, though, not very impressed. I think this is a filler common. It should have been named Phyrexian Horse. Had the same name as Typeline. I like that. Pilfer. 2 mana, they reveal their hand, choose a card, they discard it. This is the simple version of this card we've seen before in more complicated versions. Never seen a simple version before. This is just Thoughtseize for 2 mana and then no life. These cards often see fringe play in standard. If you need a discard spell, this card will do it. It is discarded, not exiled, which is important because these cards would often exile. Kind of fun art too. Good old Tiny Bones. I like Tiny Bones. Tiny Bones is cool. And yeah, definitely a fringe playable card. I would not play this card in limited though. The Raven Man. 2 mana for a 2/1 human wizard legend. Beginning of each end step, if a player discarded a card this turn, make a 1/1 black bird token with flying, and most importantly, can't block, which kills this card. Just kills it. Spend 4 mana, tap it. Each opponent discards a card as a sorcery. Not being able to block, if it made birds that could block, I think this card is phenomenal, and this card probably makes Liliana playable by itself. Raven Man on 2, Liliana on 3, make a bird block, and that's phenomenal. That's a great start. But because the birds can't block, they can't defend themselves, can't defend your planeswalkers, that makes this card much worse and more of like a, I'm not really sure. So Card's not great. Definitely a discard theme deck kind of card. Does like deck exist in standard? Probably not. I'm sure I'll play this card with Waste Not and Tiny Bones and Historic at some point. But all in all, the no block line is one of the worst lines in Magic, and it just totally ruins this card. Totally ruins it. Not a great card. Not a great card. And limited is great. It's a 2-1 for 2 with upside, which is awesome. But yeah, not super exciting. Sengir Connoisseur. Black 3, flying vampire, 3/3. When one or more creatures die, put a counter on this only once a turn. This is a good limited card. These cards are usually like 2/2s or 1/1s. So the fact that this is a 3/3 for 5, which is already like an okay rate, is pretty good. Only triggers once a turn. That's fine. It's a 4/4, then it's a 5/5. That's pretty good too. So good top end card for your draft deck. Not a card you're like slamming, but solid card for sure. Very, very solid card. Shadow Prophecy. What do we got here? We got a Bombin Common. And this card is honestly a Bombin Common for Constructed also. This card's good. So normally I hate these kind of cards, but let's read it and find out what I like about it. The amount of for an instant. It has Domain. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Put up to 2 of them in your hand, and the rest in your graveyard, you lose 2 life. So, normally I don't like these sort of read the bones, 3 mana sorcery, scry 2, draw 2, lose 2 cards. I think they're terrible. Because you can't really afford to like tap out for divination on your main phase, lose 2 life, not affect the board, yada yada yada. But this one goes above and beyond a number of different ways. First, it's an instant. So now you can leave it up on their turn. They gotta be kind of play around whatever you have, and then you end step fire this thing off if you can. If you don't need to, it's fine also. That's number 1. Number 2 is the cards go to the bin, which is great. Actually, number 2 is you get to see more cards, right? So if you have a Triumph in play, this looks at 3 cards, and you have to keep 2 of them. And that's awesome. If you have more domain than that, we're looking at a lot of cards here. This card digs really, really deep, which is awesome. And then, most importantly, the cards go to the bin also. So any sort of graveyard synergies or whatever, that's pretty cool. So that's a lot of upsides from your normal Read the Bones effect. That makes this card very exciting for me. If you have 3 or 4 land types in play, this card's great. Again, the life loss concerns me a lot, and I struggled a bit with like giving this the Bombin Common award, because I almost think this card's better in Constructed than in Limited. But depending on the speed of the Limited format, this card could also be really, really good there. I'm down. I like this card. Shadow Prophecy, sweet. Or Bombin Common. Let's go. Up next is Shadow Rite Priest, the 2 mana lord for black. It is a human cleric that pumps clerics. 2 mana 2/2. All clerics get +1/+1. And then it has the ability pay 5, sack a cleric, not this cleric, another cleric. Search the library for a black creature and put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. So a pretty weird ability, right? So we can go get like Grizzlebrand or whatever big dumb black creature there is. That's a pretty powerful effect. But does your cleric deck want that? So is this like a cleric lord for your beatdown cleric deck? Or is this a sort of like pseudo combo card for your like go get my Grizzlebrand deck? I don't know, honestly. It's kind of a weird card, Pretty powerful ability. The cost is high. The cost is definitely high. 5 mana and sack creature at it's not sorcery, but it still costs a lot. Is a lot. So we'll see. We'll see. I think this card has potential, obviously. This is the kind of card where it's just like, well, whatever big dumb black creature they print, this can go get it. That's pretty powerful. But yeah, kind of a weird card in that it's a tribal lord that doesn't really, I don't think it really matters. It's a tribal lord. The important part with this card is the 5 mana ability. Is that viable? Not sure. As the limited card, this card's great, obviously. It just goes, you can go get your bomb. It's a lord, it's a bear. All the lords are fine and limited if they're 2/2s. Up next is She-Old Red, the Apocalypse. What's the deal with this card? Right? Like, all the other Phyrexian Praetors are like, Vorinclex, 6 mana, 6/6, trample, haste, double your counters, halve their counters. Jin Gitaxis, your opponent, can't play their first spell, and you copy all your spells. And this thing's like, I wish I was Siege Rhino. This is like the big bad of the set. This is the Nicol Bolas of the set. This is the leader of the Phyrexians, coming here to muck up Dominaria, and it's just a freaking 4/5 or 4. Like, I don't know. I don't really get it. So 4 mana for a 4/5 Death Touch. Death Touch here is obviously a little bit redundant. on a decently sized creature. 4/5 for 4 is fine. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. It's okay. It's okay. The thing is that this card doesn't really give you any immediate value. So while this card has more long-term potential than a card like Siege Rhino, because you can kind of like keep doing it over and over again, that's kind of cool. The reality is you play this and they just kill it, and that's it. That's the whole story, you know? And that's not very good, honestly. That's not very good. So I think this card is mostly underwhelming. I kind of doubt this card will see play in Constructed. If it does, it's okay, you know. But this is just like a weird middling mid-range card and nothing else, which is kind of just a strange thing for your big Phyrexian Praetor bad to be. So whatever. Definitely a bomb unlimited. Obviously, we're just looking at massive rate against limited. It's good against red decks, I suppose, if the toughness is high enough where they can't kill it. You can just like gain some life, kind of things like that too. But all in all, just a very ho-hum card. Very ho-hum card. We're passing it along here. We're moving on to our next card here in She-Old Red's Restoration. This card is oh boy. Can't find a button for it. Whatever. Just do that one, I guess. 4 mana for a sorcery. Return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If a spell is kicked, you gain life equal to the mana value. Otherwise, you lose that much life. This is a 4 mana reanimate. Reanimate costs 1 usually. 4 mana to zombify a creature, and you lose life for the mana value. All right, so I reanimate a Coma, Cosmos Serpent. I lose 7. That sucks. Like what? And then if you manage to spend 7 mana on it with the kicker, you gain the life instead. At that point, just freaking cast your 7-drop. This card's terrible. This card is just not. This card is so safe. It is unbelievable. Not a good card. Not a good card. Not about it. There are much better ways to animate things, and this card is not good in limited either. Terrible card. Terrible card. Up next is Splatter Goblin. Just another Mog Monday. 2 mana for a 2/1 Phyrexian Goblin. When Splatter Goblin dies, the creature gets -1/-1 on return. The slightly larger Festering Goblin, which is cool. The flavor text here is, for some, perfection is but a single moment when form and purpose converge. It's good flavor text. Obviously a fine 2-drop for limited. It's 2/1 for 2. It can kill things. It can make for awkward trades. It can trade up into a 3/3, which is kind of cool. Just a good draft common. It's a good draft common. I'm about it. Stronghold Arena. 2 mana for an enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, you may reveal the top card of your library and put it in your hand. If you do, lose life to its mana value. So, it gives you a Dark Confident trigger whenever you deal combat damage to your opponent. So, that's not bad. The problem is you play this card, you attack, say it works. The creature gets through, you have to draw a card off it. Great. Now it's replaced itself. Until you draw that second card, you haven't really gotten anywhere yet. And you might as well have cast Night's Whisper, So you really got to get that third card off this to make it good. And that's pretty slow. That's pretty slow. So I'm not really thrilled about this card. The kickers are kind of cool. Kicker green or white, you gain life. So it's nice to gain some life back that you can use for the arena. But all in all, I think this card is kind of typical of your usual 2 mana enchantment that tries to draw cards based on attacking. The problem is you invest a card into it. It triggers once, you get your card back. Triggers again, now you're below rate. And then if it triggers again, I mean, that's so much that's already happened now. Are you okay with that? So all in all, I don't know. This card's kind of cool. Maybe it's a black aggro that can do it, but yeah, this is definitely not Phyrexian Arena. It's gonna play worse than it looks, is my opinion. And then in limited, it's probably fine, but the risk is that you're just playing 5-drops in your draft deck because you have to, and you can't build around it really. So all in all, it's a card that I think I'm not super impressed with, which sucks. I freaking love Phyrexian Arena. Tattered Apparition is next. Tattered Apparition is a 4 mana 2/2 flyer. So once again, right off the bat, not good. All right, similar to the cards you're talking about in white, you can't play a creature that costs 4 and can't block ever. All right, not good. If we get to untap with it, it is a shade. It can grow by putting mana into it, and this is the kind of card that if you're super late in the game, yeah, you can pump it and kind of do your thing, but I don't know. In Seal, this card's probably okay. If you're also playing a deck that just like is going to stabilize really well, but like can't get all the way there, sure, this can close it out for you. But this is a really, really slow, really, really small creature, and I am not impressed. Toxic Abomination. It's a creature with a drawback, folks. I haven't seen one of those since 2011. 2 mana for a 3/2 Phyrexian zombie with ETBs, lose 2 life. Love it. Love it. Love drawbacks. Back in my day, folks. Back in my day, cards had drawbacks. All right? It wasn't all upside all the time. And I'm happy to see a card with a little bit of a harkening back to that. So, 3/2 is pretty good. This is the card you're going to play in your aggro decks, and you go from there. It's not quite Tenacious Underdog for sure. But yeah, if you're drafting and you're playing an aggressive deck, this card's reasonable. Definitely diminishing returns. I wouldn't want to have 6 of these in my deck, right? But the first 1 or 2 is pretty good. So, it's a curve filler. It's an aggro card. It's fine. It's fine. Tribute to Urborg. 2 mana for an instant. Creature gets -2/-2. If you kick it for a blue and a colorless, it gets an additional -1/-1 for each instant sorcery card in your graveyard. Fine kill spell. It's a fine kill spell. Obviously a lot better in blue-black. But 2 mana -2/-2 is not the end of the world for 2 mana. It's not great, but it's fine. So more of a blue-black card. There are some good blue-black kind of controlling cards in the set with the divination and stuff too. So I can see blue-black control being sort of a archetype in limited for sure. Urborg Repossession. This card's actually pretty sweet. 1 black, return creature card from your graveyard to your hand, gain 2 life. If you kick it for a green and a colorless, you can return another permanent card. Any permanent, not just a creature from your graveyard to your hand. So that's a land, maybe a planeswalker or whatever. This card's pretty good. You know, the 3 mana return 2 things card is like a staple of like grindy green-black graveyard decks. And this card can do that, or it can be cheap as well, which is great. The life gain's super nice as far as buying you some time to cast all your cards, which is great. This card's good. I wouldn't take this card high, because you probably don't want more than 1 of this card, maybe 1, 2 maximum. But card's sweet. I like it. Solid card, solid draft card, good for grindy decks, and pretty sweet. Writhing Necromass. 7 mana for a 5/5 Death Touch. I don't know why they keep putting Death Touch in freaking 10/10s, but whatever. And this is your affinity common in black. Costs 1 less for each creature card in your graveyard. There's definitely some self-mill stuff. We've seen that already. So definitely a theme in black for sure. And this card's pretty good. If this card costs, 5 or 4, you're getting a pretty good rate. If it costs less than that, awesome. So good card. Also plays well with that uncommon, where it counts the mana value of creatures in your graveyard. So good, solid synergy card. Like affinity a lot. Solid. All right, that's it. That's it for black. So once again, to recap here, we have our best in show is Cut Down. Our trap card is Liliana of the Veil. Our sleeper card is Braids, Arisen Nightmare. And our Bombin Common is Shadow Prophecy. So that's black. We still got much more to do, folks. We did white, we did blue, we did black. Moving on to red next on stream. But you two folks, love you. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. All right, what do you think? Red's coming up. You two folks, everything is on YouTube. You can go watch it. All going up on Saturday. And I'll see you for 10 New Brews also. Everything else as well. Love you all. Thanks for watching. And you're all great.